Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Like I said, we were on the air last week before the polls in New York closed. Thought we'd probably talk about that a little bit. Donald Trump smoked everybody. Hillary Clinton won by a couple points more than she was projected. Not as much. Donald certainly blew the cover off what he was supposed to have brought in, but makes that Krusik. Hey, we're going to get to that segment in a second. Right. That Kasich Cruz thing, a lot more.
I like
yeah,
that.
Right. A lot more difficult. Their respective pitches to the Republican elite, and on the other side, it just kind of puts the math further and further out of reach for Bernie Sanders. But and there's a bunch of races going on right this second in Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And I think I got them all on both sides. And those polls, my phone is telling me to close at 7 o'clock Central. So we'll be bringing some of the early results in before we leave as they come in, and we'll see if there's any early projections. Donald Trump is expected to do very well in these races, and Hillary Clinton is expected to do well, at least in Pennsylvania and Maryland, which have the biggest delegate hauls of the night on the Democratic side. So we'll be interested to see how those things shape up. Everybody is campaigning really hard. But in conjunction with talking about the delegates, we should get to this, armistice, a potential truce between Ted Cruz and John Kasich that was tentatively announced on Sunday, walked back on Monday, and seems to be dead in the water by Tuesday, kind of like that old nursery rhyme. Doc, did you look into any of this from Sunday?
I looked at it, and the problem is, and I believe this is the establishment kiss of death, honest, because they bring in Kasich in order to be able to be the establishment candidate. And he's running, and he did okay in Ohio. And I believe he got what did he get in Ohio? 27? No, not 27, like 38%, 42%.
Something like that, yeah.
Something. And I'm like, for being governor of Ohio, and you really didn't do all that well. And so here it is. They're bringing in Kasich. Cruz is sitting there going like, well, I really don't want to be the establishment candidate, but holy cow, I'm starting to run low on cash, and that might be helpful. I need to be able to recruit somebody. I need to get this other guy off my back, because what the establishment has done systematically is go after Cruz time and time and time again because nobody likes him. That's the basic fact. When you win your state, which is Texas for Cruz, at a 27% margin, because I just looked that up, if your margin is 27%, that is the worst anybody has done in their home state. He barely carried his home state. He got pounded in Ohio. He lost in Florida. The only place he has won has been strongholds where people are evangelical. That one of those strongholds is Iowa. He won that. We also have a very strong pundit swinging for him, and several other very conservative Republicans here. Steve Deace is one. So the bottom line is when you start looking at Cruz, there's not a way, even if he got the nomination, there's not a way he's going to win anything. He is so terribly unpopular. His stunts with Ben Carson have backfired, cost him a lot of support. You have a lot of people saying, well, Cruz might be my second choice, but basically, it isn't like it was in the 3rd district here this couple of years ago where, you had the guy in last just kind of kept hanging around. What you have is people going, yeah, Trump is my first choice, and Rubio or Cruz might be my second choice, and then they go down the list, Huckabee and the rest of them. Bottom line is Krusich thing, they got together, and the establishment kiss of death got them. Because nobody wants to be the establishment candidate. People are rejecting that over and over and over. And I know Hillary's winning, and I know she's really, doing pretty well. But that's because the establishment hasn't turned on her like the Republican establishment hasn't turned on Cruz. The other thing is Bernie Sanders should be out of the race by now. Very clearly, and Hillary should have put him down early, and she didn't. I believe that is a reflection of this hate for the establishment candidate. And then finally, this deal that Cruz and Kasich had really smacks of poor sportsmanship. We know it's dirty, but hold on. You can't even take on one guy that's not even collecting money from anybody else. You have to gang up on him. There's no way you can win now, so this is what you have to do to be the spoiler. That isn't American. That's the truth. That is not American. Now, if you want to be an ideologue and say, geez, Cruz is the only one that's truly Christian, or whatever else you want to say, bottom line is that's not how Americans play ball. We don't sit there and do these dastardly underhanded things that make it look like it's poor sportsmanship. Don't get me wrong. They do dirty underhanded things all the time. But this smacks poor sportsmanship. This also smacks of establishment rejection. What do you think?
As far as Kasich and Cruz, it's too little too late. I mean, this is the kind of thing they should have been doing. And somewhat funnily, hilariously, you might say, Mitt was calling for this a few months ago. But for Kasich to it just shows this kind of like, talking out of both sides of their mouth. They both came out and said, hey, I'm going to get out of their campaigns came out and said, I'm going to get out of your way in Indiana. I'm going to get out of your way in New Mexico and all these places where they think Donald Trump's going to have problems. But then almost immediately, John Kasich comes out and says, hey, I didn't tell anybody not to vote for me. I hope they do vote for me. I hope they vote for Ted. I hope they vote for anybody except Donald Trump. That's kind of what he said about Marco Rubio in Florida, saying, hey, I'm not going to get out of Marco's way in Florida. I'm running to win this thing on my own merit. Well, you can't both say, my message is deny this guy, which is a fundamentally negative message. I'm running so this guy can't win. And also say, I'm running because of a positive vision that I have for America that's going to get us to a place where we want to be. You're mixing your message. You're mixing your message in such a way that folks are going to see right through it. Cruz, on the other hand, boy, he was sure happy to jump on that soundbite, or he was certainly happy to jump on that invitation from Kasich, wasn't he? He kind of goes out there with the tweet almost immediately saying, hey, Kasich's behind me. We're unifying the party against Trump. And that, to me, speaks of some kind of desperation on Cruz's part.
He's extremely desperate.
He's 300 and some behind a guy that just waxed him in New York, which everyone expected because New Yorkers hate Ted Cruz. And I'm getting the sense for his campaign a little bit, and kind of their attitude in this whole Kasich thing, that they've been kind of surprised by some of the reaction to Ted Cruz. To me, this is when you go after the establishment as hard as he's gone after his entire career. Don't get me wrong. When you call on the leader of your party on the floor of the Senate a liar to everybody's face, when you're conducting these long speeches that only benefit you with your own donors, he didn't help anybody in the Republican Party when he did his long filibuster-esque speeches. That all that he raised money, he raised funds on that for himself. None of that helped the Republican Party. Why would Republicans in a closed primary anywhere look at Ted Cruz as somebody who's like, hey, he's got our back, as opposed to this is somebody who's in it for himself? And so I think this move with Kasich, it seems desperate to me. They immediately walked back each other yesterday and today, which makes the whole exercise completely useless. And
it makes them look like idiots.
It makes them look like idiots, and it makes Donald Trump look like the adult for a couple of days.
And that takes a lot to make Donald Trump look like the adult.
It does, but that's just, it's so, who's advising them? Who's advising them?
Well, it's fundamental Christians.
If ding-dongs like us can see through it, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the other thing is, let's point out of all the people from all these states that have done decently in their own home states, Trump is the one that has dominated his own state. He did well in Texas. He did well in Florida. He dominated his own state. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like victory. And so, maybe the question we should be asking is, do we really need the political parties anymore? We'll get to that question right after this break. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Without you, I can't even do my line. Thanks for tuning in. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. Thanks everybody.